Welcome to Math Stats at Williams. I'm Department Chair Frank Morgan. I hope you'll enjoy our webpage, come to our events, and stop by our department in Brompton anytime. Math Stats at Williams is for everyone.
It was really amazing how Frank gave us problems that were both manageable but also of contemporary interest, and how he led us but definitely did not show us how to solve the problems. As I've become more of a research mathematician myself, I realized how difficult it is to do that, and how important it is to have people like Frank who have devoted their life to doing this for students of all different types. I think I, as well as many other people here and who couldn't come, can say that Frank really did change our lives in the way that he helped us learn what it means to be a research mathematician. In exchange, I think that we changed Frank's life a little bit. I know that my group changed his life by getting him a cat. His cat had run away, and we got him a new cat named Everest, who lived with him for many years.
So I have great memories of Frank working on math, of course, but also going over to his house, the pool, doing math on the board there, drinking Exo Cooler, which if you've been in his group, you probably had, and I had then and have never had before, and arguing about whether he or his brother was older, and I'm going to go on the record and say that Frank is older. So I hope our paths cross again, Frank, mathematically and socially. It's been a lot of fun. I'm grateful.
Frank Morgan taught me that the clearest explanation is usually concise and to the point. This applies in writing proofs and also in everyday life.
You'd think after all the years of grad school that I would think of things that my PhD advisor told me when I'm doing research, but just as often it's Frank's voice in my head, on a weekly basis, echoing things that he told me that summer at Williams. I'm I think, I want to work on this, and Frank's voice comes to me and says, you need to work on everything every day, or various answers to complaints that I made that summer at Williams.
First of all, I'm very grateful to Professor Morgan for giving me a chance to be part of the group as a freshman. It was my first research experience, and I did learn a lot from Professor Morgan and also by interacting with the group. Especially, I learned a lot about math communication, which is something that Professor Morgan emphasized a lot. I still remember in one of the practice talks, he made us rehearse 3 times how to get from the seat to the stage before even saying the first word.
You taught me to have respect for other people. I remember one time after Perelman solved the Poincare conjecture, I was making some joke about him to you about how quirky or odd he was, and you rebuked me. You told me that we should have respect for people, just no matter what their personality, no matter what their fears or their personal traits. You taught me work-life balance. You told me that you never do research on Sunday because, not just because you're a Christian Scientist, but because you think it makes your research better that you take a day off each week. And ever since then, because I'm Jewish, I've taken off Friday night and Saturday daytime from doing any homework. And lastly, you taught me confidence in myself. I never thought I could be a math major. They never thought I could be a thesis student. And now, thanks to you, I'm in grad school.
I learned so much from Professor Morgan, it's hard for me to pick one story. He taught me about math and how to be creative and how to focus. But one thing that really stands out in my memory now is the way that he wanted to involve us in the community. I remember vividly going to a celebration for long-standing members of the MAA, or getting to go to MSRI in Berkeley for a conference even as an undergrad. It is really amazing to me that he provides these experiences for his students. It takes a lot of dedication, and I really appreciate that.
Although I'm recording this for the geometry group video, small is actually just a very minor part of how I remember Professor Morgan. He was the first member of the math faculty I've met when I visited Williams as a high school junior, dragged me into his office, and gave me what obviously turned out to be a pretty successful sales pitch. He was also my freshman advisor. I spent January of my junior year chasing around Massachusetts and New York, playing bridge with him and the rest of the winter study group. And then I worked with him on my senior thesis. Through all that time, he was the first person I went to for advice on how I should keep growing as a mathematician. And looking back on how that turned out, all I can say is thank you very much, and I can't imagine my time at Williams without you.
The fact I wanted to remember from the geometry group days is that as the dimension grows, you need a bigger radius to include the same amount of volume. So if it was a unit disk or a unit ball, unit being a unit of volume, the radius is going to have to increase as the dimension goes up. And this sticks with me because partly because there's a sociological kind of implication of this. Elinor Ostrom talked about local solutions to local problems, but if you think about a world in which problems are very interconnected and problems are global in scope and they have many dimensions, then it stands to reason that their locality the locality in which they can be resolved is not going to be small. So lots of work to do. Anyway, hi from Joe Corneli, G01.
Another thing is hiking. Frank used to make us, we never wanted to talk about math when we were hiking. we didn't know how to talk about math if we could write something down. But he would make us talk about it, because he said you had to learn to talk about math without a chalkboard, without a pencil and paper. And I still occasionally, that simple lesson stays with me, because the thoughts you can have when you're hiking are different than the thoughts you can have when you have a pencil in your hand. And I still go on hikes with other mathematicians who understand this fact. And I still occasionally walk with mathematicians who don't, and I explain it to them.
Hi, I'm Kara Yoder from Geometry Group of Small, summer of '98, and I'm now teaching geometry and honors geometry at high school.
But this one is short.
That's right, that one's a short one. But if two sides are the same, what kind of triangle is it?
Isosceles.
Good job.
When I was in Professor Morgan's geometry group, I learned a lot about solving isoperimetric problems and about how to give a good talk. But one thing I will always remember about that summer is how he shared his love of soap bubble geometry with everyone he encountered, something I'm sure he'll continue to do no matter where he ends up after Williams.
So I remember in Geometry Group 09 we were in Spain, and we were staying at this university residence there, the Carmen de la Victoria. And other people coming to visit the university would stay there. So one time Frank found out that Mario Vargas Llosa was going to be there. And I didn't know who that was. I think the first time I asked Frank, he said, oh, he's the guy who punched Gabriel Garcia Marquez in the face. But it turns out this famous writer coming to stay at the same hotel as us. And so Frank contrives this plan where we will find out when he's arriving, and then we're going to go and wait at the entrance, at the registration desk of the hotel, and offer to carry his bags. And that way we'll all be able to meet Vargas Llosa. And I remember the day came, and we went down there to do it. And we waited and we waited and waited. And eventually Frank got bored and Frank left. But the rest of us waited down there, and eventually he really showed up. And so we carried his bags up to his room, and we met Vargas Llosa. And yeah, it was a funny Frank experience. It taught me never let an opportunity go by.
One time my parents came down from Michigan to visit me in Williamstown, and Dr. Morgan invited them over his house with me and Brian, Miguel, and Nirali, and we had lunch with all of us. And I remember getting out of there and my parents telling me that I was so lucky to have Dr. Morgan as an advisor. And that's when I realized that Dr. Morgan meant so much more to me than just an advisor. He was a great person that cared about me.
The year we went to Math Fest, it was held in Madison at this building by the lake. And Frank had this cool idea that we should shoot our videos explaining the research we did right by the waterfront. However, every shot he was trying to take, there was this boat that was right behind us and he couldn't get a good shot. And so we could see him slowly getting angry. And after a little bit, he yelled, "Sink boat!" It was hilarious.
Frank, thank you for being a great mentor, not only during small, but afterwards in my career as a grad student and as part of the Notices group. You have had an amazing career, and I'm sure a lot of good things are still to come. Congratulations.
I stopped to think about it. He's the one that sent me down my current path. He encouraged me to try and solve problems no one knew how to solve, and not give up when most or all of my attempts fail miserably. His guidance has affected me far more than I tend to think day to day, and I'm very lucky for it. Thank you, Frank.
I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to be in Frank Morgan's group at Small. He always pushed us really hard and gave really good advice, and I think I even took away a bunch of organizational skills. And I think he was just the best mentor, and I'm really glad that I got to know him. And I hope that FrankFest is going really well. So hi, Dr. Morgan. Thank you for everything.
In any case, it's a real pleasure to be here and to have a chance to celebrate Frank and all of the wonderful accomplishments that he's done, as well as to hope for many more in many subsequent years.
I don't know if I would be a mathematician if it weren't for the positive influence that Frank made that summer.
Well, happy FrankFest to you, Frank, and to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Professor Morgan.
Thanks for everything, Frank.
Hi, Professor Morgan. Thank you for developing generations of geometry lovers.
Snake.